We are back. I'm Joe Messino, and this is the anchor, Dr. Gideon Orbach. And, we were going to do a roundtable discussion with Mike Gallagher today. And, of course, Mike's really, his customers, when they need him, they need him. He's out there. So today's discussion is still on cardiovascular health, heart disease, the number one killer still in this country. And, you might have some people that will argue that, I've heard some of our functional medicine physicians actually say that they believe that the number one cause of death in this country is still a combination of medical errors and drug therapies.
I believe that. I mean, it's
if you combine them all.
If you combine them all.
Combine them all together.
Combine them all.
Right.
I mean, it's fuzzy statistics. I mean, I don't know who's keeping track and who has incentive to give you which documentation.
Right.
And I think if there's one thing we've learned over the last several years, you can be mislabeled.
You can. And, I think so for most people, cardiovascular disease is first and foremost in their hearts and minds. No pun intended.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, how'd you like that? Yeah. But what I want to do is now talk a little bit about it, and from like 2 or 3 different standpoints. To me, internally, there are 2 major components to heart health, and that is the actual strength of the heart itself, because it's a muscle,
for sure,
and then the effectiveness of the cardiovascular system, which is circulation in nature. So you have energy for the heart muscle, strength for the heart muscle, and you have then the circulatory process that surrounds it, and that it works with the heart circulation. To me, those are the 2 things that need addressed the most. But Doc, there's got to be a structural component as well.
Well, you're absolutely right. I'd like to add a third component. You're so spot on talking about the strength of the heart and the integrity of the circulatory system, but we also have to have activation, and that activation is going to come from the nervous system, specifically from the brain stem. So the brain stem is old brain. I mean, we talk about what's developed and what's laid on top of, and what's new brain and what separates us from the beasts of the field. But the brain stem that's the oldest area of our neuraxis, and we talk about what modulates or what activates or controls heartbeat, breathing, sleeping, digestion, eye movement, like basic survival stuff. And you can't have a strong heart or a well-integrated circulatory system if you don't have neurological activation where the brain is sending messages to keep it all regulated. So when you say, is there a structural component, we have a really, really interesting biological discussion. Does form dictate function? Does function dictate form? As us human beings, what is our form and what is our function, and where is the overlap? So certainly their physical expression that is going to influence to have a healthy heart and a healthy circulatory system. I like to stay away from saying that there's one specific vertebra that can be adjusted that would maintain heart health, but I would go so far as to say that a well-adjusted skeleton will feed a lot of information into the brain stem.
Well, just like you wouldn't address one single vertebrae, you wouldn't still address one singular cause.
Absolutely.
Internally or nutritionally or physiologically for heart disease. It's a multifaceted monster that we have to face right now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to start off, though, first by what this is a roundtable discussion. Yeah. So I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to tell you what I don't think causes heart disease. What's coming.
I can't wait to hear this. I like this.
Folks,
already.
It's not your cholesterol, okay? It's not. Phil, hang on, buddy. They're going to be coming for us. All right, but it's not your cholesterol. Now, let's just address that and get the elephant out of the room right off the bat.
I just want to say I could not possibly be more in support of that.
Okay, thank you. I got it. That's good. So, cholesterol, a vital nutrient in your body. Your body makes it. Part of this divine structure. It makes it for many reasons. It's needed for so many chemical pathways, hormonal, you name it. The brain requires it for its health, right? Mm-hmm. All of your cell membranes require it. The production of your hormones, testosterone on down, all require cholesterol. You cannot synthesize vitamin D from the sun without ample amounts of cholesterol in your skin.
We just had maybe 15 or 20 minutes ago, we had the colloidal silver specialist speaking with us in a previous roundtable, and he said something that was new for me and makes complete and total sense, that the myelin, the neural myelination, has receptor sites for silver. So yes. We talked about, we drilled down on that just a little bit, and we talked about myelin as being insulation for the nerves. Like that's like when nerves send a message from one nerve to the next, they have what are called synapses. And nerves form synapses with other nerves that are of a similar or even an identical diameter. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the diameter of the nerve, one of the things we have to take into account for is the protective insulative sheet, the myelin. So that myelin is fat. That myelin is made of cholesterol.
That's right.
So without it, I just don't see how we can have a healthy nervous system, whether we're talking about any ability that the human has or any ability that any animal has. I mean, whether it's to have this conversation right now, mm-hmm. whether it's to run from danger, whether it's to keep your heart beating at the rate that it is, without a nervous system, it's just simply not going to happen.
Right.
And we have to have that cholesterol to insulate the nervous system.
That's right. Absolutely. So on the part where when it comes to cardiovascular health, let's take it a step further. Let's talk a little bit about what people have been indoctrinated with. Okay, so if I were to ask the audience, there's two types of cholesterol, right? Mm-hmm. Good and bad. What do you think 99.9% of the audience would respond?
Well, I think most of the audience would nod their heads in agreement.
Yes.
Good cholesterol, bad cholesterol.
Good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Then we can take it a step further and say, okay, which one is the good cholesterol and which one's the bad? Well, those that are a little more informed might know that the so-called bad cholesterol is your LDL. And your so-called good cholesterol is HDL. That's what's measured, and that's what a lot of these practitioners and physicians are going by to prescribe their cholesterol-lowering medications.
I think the right answer, you say, which is preferable. The answer is under which circumstances.
It goes deeper than that, Doc, and let me explain.
Okay.
LDL stands for low-density lipoprotein.
True.
HDL stands for high-density lipoprotein. They're both lipoproteins or fat proteins. There's no cholesterol in that definition anywhere, is there?
It's hidden in there somehow.
Well, these are the carriers of the cholesterol molecule, okay? That's where it gets confusing. Cholesterol is a molecule. There's only one, okay? There's not two different kinds of cholesterol. There's one cholesterol molecule. It's transported from your liver where it's made in the same pathway as CoQ10, as a matter of fact, but it's transported from your liver into the body to do its job by a low-density lipoprotein. Once it's done its work, then it relies on a high-density lipoprotein to transfer it back to the liver to be excreted from the body. Done its job, time to go. However, neither one of them are, it's not a definition of high or low cholesterol. Now, they will have you believe the LDL's the bad because it's the one that brings the cholesterol into your body. And if your cholesterol numbers are high, well, there's your culprit. No. The HDL they call the good cholesterol simply because it excretes it from the body. Let's get rid of that terrible thing. We don't want to do that either. The difference is this. Folks, if your serum cholesterol numbers are extremely high, and most functional medicine practitioners will say over 300, especially higher in age, 50, 60 plus, it's not because you've made too much. It's because your body hasn't processed it properly, and now it's lingering and it's oxidizing. And that's when it becomes a problem. Now, is that a fault of the mechanism that produces the cholesterol? No. That is an antioxidant deficiency, a vitamin deficiency, a lifestyle issue that's causing it to stick around and to form plaque and to become the bad guy. So let's just finish the whole cholesterol discussion by saying it's not a major marker, and there's been studies that have shown this for years. It's not a major marker of heart disease. However, if it is extremely high, you have other problems to worry about, and that's high oxidation going on, high inflammation going on, and probably a lot of clogging going on in veins and arteries in the body.
I think that's very well said. And we talk about cholesterol and we talk about fat as being the bad guy, which is probably a mischaracterization. And to your point, when we talk about the deficiency of we have free radical buildup and we're not getting enough antioxidants to wash them away, we should take a closer look. Is like these buildups that we see in blood vessels in the circulatory system are usually attributed to too much sugar.
Always, yes, absolutely attributed to too much sugar. When you combine sugar with stored fat, you had advanced glycation.
Right. So certainly we want to talk about cardiovascular health and make a very strong link to diet, maybe what we are eating that we should not be eating. We talk about the free radical buildup and how we want to have antioxidants to come and scavenge for those free radicals. And we can certainly say that certain antioxidants have a better affinity for certain body tissue. So we want to have a broad spectrum of the different antioxidants that we're taking, that we're consuming. And that leads us to the nutritional component.
That does.
That really, let's look at some of these nutritional actually, let's look at all of these nutritional supplements as being a form of food.
Well, they are a form of food, and now let's go right to the heart of the matter.
Good use of words.
Okay, and that is the powerful antioxidant that is required, is absolutely necessary. It has serum levels highest in your heart. Without it, every cell in your body would die, and that's coenzyme Q10. There is not a single more important nutrient for heart health than CoQ10.
Yeah, the CoQ10 that we carry here is a chewable wafer form, and it's almost like, we put out the samples during our wellness week, and I mean, you see them disappearing so quickly because they taste so good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they sure do. And, CoQ10 is made, as I said earlier, your body makes it. It's endogenous. So this is one of those nutrients the body knows it needs, and it makes it, right?
Right.
It makes it in the same chemical pathway as cholesterol. So when you take a cholesterol-lowering drug, you are also stopping, it stops the production of cholesterol in your liver, and it stops the production of CoQ10. It stops the production of the nutrient the most necessary for heart health. So it's accomplishing the exact opposite of its intended effect.
Something else that we don't talk about CoQ10 enough is if you study the biochemical pathways is how we produce energy. When we consume food, I mean, we're going to initiate, every single cell is going to have a pathway where how are we going to take that food and turn it into usable energy? And we need little ingredients along the way to keep the reactions going, the cofactors. And Dr. Ross spoke about this earlier this morning, about ATP, adenosine triphosphate, being the energy currency of the body, and how do we make it? And for every measurable unit of glucose that we bring into by consumption of food, for every measurable unit that we bring in, how are we going to maximize our ability to get energy out of it? And coenzyme Q10 is a very important cofactor to drive that reaction to maximize the amount of ATP or energy currency that we can make out of our food. So when we talk about why is a nutrient so important, and we're going to make a list of maybe 5 or even 10 nutrients supplements that really everybody, regardless of their condition, should be taking every day. And you and I can talk about this, but we don't have a lab. We don't have chemistry equipment and a university-funded studies. So we're basically giving our opinion based on what we learn from the labs, not the anecdotal, I talked to my patient and here's what they said, here's the feedback. And we look at certain nutrients that, like, the main purpose, why would anybody take coenzyme Q10 is obviously for heart health. And then let's drill down on that and look at secondary benefits.
Yes.
And that's how we see that coenzyme Q10 jumps to the top of the leaderboard.
It does. Secondary benefits are multiple.
Yes.
It's the heart, the brain, the liver, the lungs, all have high serum levels of coenzyme Q10. Now, if you take a statin drug and you diminish the production of it and you don't supplement with it, the very first adverse effect you will feel is muscle pain, muscle soreness, and brain fog. Now, why is that? Well, because CoQ10 drives energy to the muscles.
Bigger muscles first.
The bigger muscles first. So the leg pain comes from the deficiency of CoQ10. The brain fog comes from the deficiency of CoQ10. So coenzyme Q10, single most important, in my opinion, single most important nutrient for heart health and neurological health in the body. Now, we've worked over the years with a physician, Dr. Steven Sinatra, and he is probably the world's most well-known, foremost functional medicine cardiologist. He's a cardiologist by degree, but he practices functional medicine. And he does have a trio of nutrients that he uses on a regular basis, and they all involve energy. So he's approaching heart from the energy standpoint, not the circulatory standpoint.
Yes.
Okay, so CoQ10's at the top of the list. The second one is a nutrient called D-ribose, which is a simple sugar. And the third is an amino acid, L-carnitine. Now, they make up the basis, the triangle of the Sinatra protocol. We covered CoQ10, and everybody's deficient in it. Now, what about something like D-ribose? Now, this is something a lot of people don't know about, Doc. It's a simple sugar that is absorbed immediately into the cells.
Yes, it's basically fuel. It's we talk about a moment ago as saying we got to cut back our sugar, our dietary consumption of sugar, but not all sugar is sugar. I mean,
Right.
The D-ribose is certainly not table sugar.
Right.
And we have a product called Power Fuel, which is the principal ingredient is, of course, the D-ribose.
Right.
And in fact, there's some in my tasty beverage. But you think about the D-ribose as being nothing substitutes for ATP. You have to produce that adenosine triphosphate. But think about the D-ribose as being in the same family tree as the ATP in terms of generating fuel for all your metabolic pumps, especially in your heart. Heart tissue has an affinity to it.
And it also accelerates mitochondrial repair.
Yes.
Okay, and if the heart is a muscle,
right,
that means it's working and it's tearing down and building up
back up
on a regular basis. That's why the mitochondrial repair function is so vital to a healthy heart.
And the mitochondria is the area of the cell. I mean, here's my hands, here are my fingers. Fingers are part of the hands. We have these tiny little cells. They have parts. One of the parts is called a mitochondria, and the mitochondria is the power plant. That's where the ATP is produced. So the D-ribose is, in essence, a companion product to the ATP, rebuilding the factory, doing maintenance on the factory so that the ATP can be produced.
All right, let's go to the third component, and that's L-carnitine. Now, that's an amino acid, and you're going to get that in most animal-based products. Amino acids are highest content there. The reason it's a vital part is because it's one of its purposes, many purposes for amino acid L-carnitine, is to take energy and derive it from stored fat cells. We talked about that earlier. Jamie and I were talking about fat cells and diabetes. Well, one of the things L-carnitine does is it enables the body to utilize that stored fat as energy. So all three of these nutrients, CoQ10, D-ribose, and L-carnitine, work on the energy component of heart health.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I don't want to, like Dr. Sinatra is, I mean, he's a genius. I mean, he's a leader in the field. I'm just here like giving you the book report on what he wrote. So take this with the appropriate grain of salt that I'm going to throw out. But let's build upon the Sinatra Triangle. Mm-hmm. Let's add a couple things to his checklist.
Add to that protocol.
And one of the things I want to add to the list is going to be fish oil.
Right.
The fish oil has fish oil containing a rich concentration of EPA, Eric Peter Anthony, and DHA, David Henry Anthony. So if you go to a random nutrition shop or a place where they sell a lot of things, and nutritional supplements are one of them, gather up the fish oil and look at the label and see, well, how many capsules constitute a serving size, first of all, and in that serving size, how much of it is EPA and how much of it is DHA. My favorite story that I like to tell that gets people's attention very quickly is if you come to my deli counter and order a slice of cherry pie and I give you some crushed cherry stems and cherry pits, not what you expected, but it's still cherry pie. There's no denying it.
Okay.
So we want to have...
Because it has a crust.
Because it has a crust. And it has cherry pits and cherry stems.
Okay.
It's cherry extract. But we want good fish oil that has rich concentration of DHA and EPA. And you might read the label and it might say fish oil, and you might have a speck of the two active ingredients and a lot of rich filler, cherry pits and cherry stems.
Yes.
So when we think about what is the fish oil, think about the EPA as being, first of all, anti-inflammatory. Second of all, very good for cardiovascular health. The DHA is good to help. Once again, we're going to rebuild those myelin sheaths.
Right.
We're going to rebuild. The brain, and I can't tell you that it's highly specific to the brain stem. But one of the things we talked about at the very beginning is the neurogenic factors into how do you maintain good cardiovascular health. And so if we're doing things to support our nervous system, by extrapolation, some of that is going to spill over to help if we're helping the nervous system, we're helping the nervous system help the heart and the cardiovascular system. And we think about what is it that's critical for survival.
Right.
Our brains are going to, when I say brain, our central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, brain stem being part of the brain, fingers being part of the hand, anatomical parts all have names. None of this is complicated. I'm just spitting out anatomical language. So the brain in general doesn't want the body to die. We're going to feed the essential functions first. So if you're taking good quality fish oil, you're going to fuel your brain stem and all the related output that comes from that area, which is going to include near the top of the list is the cardiovascular system. So let's put fish oil as a key component to Dr. Sinatra's protocol subset 1.
Absolutely a key component. And let's talk about the difference between those pits and stems and a good quality fish oil. Now, here we have our omega-3D is our top-of-the-line fish oil.
Yes.
And if you go to a big box store or any supermarket chain, you'll find something that says fish oil. And you'll find something that says it has 1,000 milligrams of fish oil. And it does. But you have to read the label and drill down a little bit, because you're going to see primarily 180 milligrams of that 1,000 is your EPA, the doc described. And 120 milligrams of that 1,000 is your DHA. That 18 to 12 ratio is the most common ratio you will find, most abundant, in stores. Now, that's 300 milligrams out of the 1,000 that's giving you the active.
Right.
Okay, the rest of it, well, we don't want to know what it is. Our omega-3D gives you 960 milligrams combined of the EPA and DHA. Okay, 960 milligrams combined in our dosage. It's 3 times the strength of what you will find on a supermarket shelf or a big box store.
Which, for those of you who count the number of capsules and pills that you take a day, and
makes a big difference.
You're gonna take 3 times as many of the 18 to 12,
right?
180 to 120. You're gonna take 3 times for every 3 of those gel caps. You're gonna take 1 omega-3D.
Right.
And that doesn't even, I mean, we haven't even mentioned that the omega-3D, the D's there too. It's fortified with vitamin D, a fat-soluble vitamin that blends very nicely with the EPA and the DHA.
Exactly.
Maximum
and someone will say, well, this one's so much cheaper. We say, yes, it is.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, because you'd have to buy 3 bottles of this to get 1 bottle of this, of ours. So there's a definite difference, folks, in fish oil. Probably it's one of the top nutrients where you really got to look at label and quality across the board.
This is true.
All right, I agree with you on that, Doc. So we've got the energy component to prevent cardiovascular or heart disease health covered. Let's talk now about that other component, and that's circulation.
Okay.
All right. So we know that the other part of cardiovascular disease, you may never have a heart attack, which is the muscle of the heart failing, but you might have something called atherosclerosis, which is, in the old days, we called it hardening of the arteries. Mm-hmm. That's the circulation issue. And what causes hardening of the arteries? Well, we mentioned that a little bit earlier. Yeah, if you have too much cholesterol, that oxidizes. That's one of your key sources of hardening of the arteries. But another is a calcium buildup in the arteries.
Yes. Well, that's where 2 things come into play. One, we certainly want to talk about the appropriate antioxidants that will help wash away or clean out those arteries. And I know we've talked about enzymes such as the nattokinase and the lumbrokinase to help. Here, are you ready for a real clinical term?
Okay.
I'm going to roto-rooter your
arteries. Roto-rooter, yeah, that's it.
But something, let's build upon what we talked about earlier this morning. Seth from Argent and Silver talked about increasing the elasticity of the body with copper.
Right.
What's wrong with maybe a tablespoon of that copper solution that we were talking about to help promote better elastic quality to our blood vessels?
Correct.
Along the way.
Absolutely. Now, this is something that has really come to the forefront in the last few years, because one of the adverse effects of what's been going on out there is something called myocarditis or thrombosis. And we're having artery issues all across the board. And it's amplified the issue with heart disease and cardiovascular health. So what we need to do is several things. Another term, Doc, that has really come into play in the last few years, although we've known about it for a long time, it's never really been that popular, and that's the production of something called nitric oxide.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And nitric oxide is a key component to keeping the arteries open and the blood flowing, carrying oxygen all throughout the body, and specifically to the heart. Now, you cannot take nitric oxide. It's not a supplement, but you can enhance your body's production of it with key nutrients. And 3 of those nutrients are beetroot powder and 2 amino acids. One is L-arginine and one is L-citrulline. And those in combination give you the best option for producing nitric oxide. This will help the endothelial lining in the arteries, keep the blood flowing, and increase blood viscosity. Now, there's a term that doesn't get used enough, viscosity.
Yeah, we got to throw that around more often in our daily lexicon. Blood viscosity. I like the sound of that.
Yes, and I think about, look, guys, you all change your oil because you want good viscosity in your car, right? Well, you've got to have that in your blood flow as well. And, the whole argument about blood thinning versus improving blood flow. That's one I love to dig in on that one.
Earlier this morning, you and Jamie spoke about diabetes.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I didn't get to hear the entirety of your conversation, but did you guys talk about sticky platelets?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
So there you go. That is a lack of blood viscosity for sure.
That's right.
So if we are doing things to promote good blood viscosity, would it stand to reason that at the same time we're doing things to prevent sticky platelets and poor sugar metabolism and perhaps adult onset type 2 diabetes?
And we know that, as you mentioned, nattokinase is an outstanding nutrient, and as you said, to act as a roto-rooter throughout your veins and arteries, cleaning out debris. Right? And that's so important when it comes to atherosclerosis and hardening of the arteries. Now, let's get to the cause. What's causing some of that?
I'm sorry. Before we get to the cause, the overwhelming majority of the nutritional supplements that we recommend, we would say take this with food to allow for better digestion, better absorption.
Yes.
But if you're listening in and this is new to you and you're gonna take our words for it and you're gonna say, I'm gonna get started with nattokinase, this is something you want to take on an empty stomach.
Correct, because it's an enzyme, and it will work as a proteolytic enzyme on an empty stomach. If you take it with food, it's just going to work as a digestive enzyme. So yes, absolutely on an empty stomach.
Okay. So I cut you off.
That's okay.
You were on a roll. I'm sorry.
So I can always get back on the wagon.
Okay.
So here's the thing now. Let's get to the cause. What's clogging up these arteries? Well, excess trans fats, sugar, advanced glycogens, all of these things are clogging the arteries. There's another cause, though, and that's calcium. So a few years back, on some news show, they mentioned that, the ingestion of calcium is the big cause of heart disease these days. Hey, people are taking too much calcium and it's clogging their arteries. Okay, well, that was not true. What was true about that statement was that the calcium in the body was staying in the blood. Yes, that part was true. But it's not because people were taking too much calcium. It's because of another deficiency. That deficiency was vitamin K2. And that deficiency is up there with D3, magnesium, and fish oil in this country. And there's a major reason for it. Vitamin K2 is mainly found in the food supply in grass-fed beef products. So grass-fed beef, cheese, butter, dairy. The problem is we've been eating corn and grain-fed beef products for the last 40, 50 years in this country when it became cheap and built up the agricultural department. But it lacked, now we have a major nutrient not in our diet. Can you get it other than grass-fed beef? Sure, but you'd have to ferment your own vegetables to do that.
I prefer to do my hunting in the nutrition store.
Exactly. So it's not easy to get these days unless you're consuming grass-fed beef products or maybe you're making your own homemade sauerkraut, which isn't hard to do, by the way. But anyhow, if you're not, you're definitely extremely deficient in vitamin K2. And its sole purpose in the body, number one purpose, is to do what? Drive calcium out of the blood and into the bones. So if there's an increase in atherosclerosis, which is a component of heart disease, it's not because we're taking too much calcium. It's because we have a deficiency of a nutrient that's responsible for driving that calcium out of the blood and into your bones, and that's vitamin K2.
And we have a product. I mean, we talked about the D3 is being blended with the fish oil, the omega 3D, and we have a calcium. These are both fat soluble vitamins, the K2 and the D3. So they make a great match. And we talked earlier in previous conversation about enhancing our immune systems, and that's just scratching the surface of everything that vitamin D3 is going to do in the human body. And we have is it called K2 Supreme or K2
Super K2
Super
Plus.
K2 Plus? And it's a good, healthy, I dare I say, even a therapeutic or a clinical dosage of both K2 and D3.
It is
rolled into one capsule.
It is, and it also has a third component, which is vitamin A, all fat soluble.
All fat soluble.
And the reason that's in there is because that's a vital component of bone health. Okay, removing old bone tissues so new bones can be built. new bone tissue. But the K2 deficiency is right at the forefront. And one of the people, well, not one of the person who actually discovered this was a doctor, a dentist, Dr. Weston A. Price. When he discovered it by his examination of lots of cultures around the world that were, had perfect bones and teeth and never took a supplement. Well, why was that?
Weston Price was amazing. I mean,
Yes.
the work that he did to travel literally around the world and study different cultures and what they ate, how they behaved, how they interacted with their environment, and what kind of health challenges were specific to one culture versus another. The wealth of knowledge that he accumulated that we still lean on today is incredible. And I believe that his work was in the 1920s, 30s.
Yes,
and he actually, at that time, he said that within if we continue to put hormones into our animals and antibiotics into our animals within 3 generations, we're going to have gender identity, gender confusion issues. And he said that in the 1930s.
Well, he was right.
Yeah.
And he's a seer. Yeah, the hormone issue is just incredible. That's why if you're not eating grass-fed beef products, if you're not eating pastured poultry products, not organic, not free range, the word has to be pastured for poultry.
Pastured and grass-fed.
And grass-fed. You can. I buy pastured eggs at Fresh Time Market. Oh, no, I'm talking about grass-fed beef. You can find that. You just got to look. I have found it as places as easy as Aldi.
I've gotten into Giant Eagle. I mean, you have to really go through the label and read what you're getting. But more and more, we see local farms are sending their products to bigger supermarkets. I mean, certainly, if you go to the farmers market, it's readily available. But the farmers markets are coming to you at Giant Eagle and at Aldi's. It's a matter of just looking.
You got to look.
Yeah.
I'll give a plug out to a local farm, Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E, Coyne Family Farms. Grass-fed beef products, pastured poultry, and humanely grass-fed raised pork products as well. So they're there. We just have to find them. Yeah, you might pay a few pennies more, but it is worth it. Yes, you are. Right. Absolutely.
You can literally taste the difference, though.
You can absolutely taste the difference. And, if you'd rather get your K2 from that, Dr. Valerie Donaldson has a protocol. She said if you eat 4 ounces of grass-fed beef 4 times a week, you'll get all you need. So think about that. That's 16 ounces. That's 1 pound. You get a pound of grass-fed ground beef, and you make 4 patties out of it. Eat that over the course of a week. You'll get all the K2 that you need. Nattokinase. Yes.
Yeah.
The second one that you're mentioning, do you get it here? The CL something? Cholesterol.
Oh, cholesterol. Okay. Yes. No. Very different in what they do. Okay. Yeah. But both very good nutrients. Nattokinase is an enzyme, and it will clear out debris in the arteries. Okay. What cholesterol is designed to do is to approach cholesterol from the proper standpoint, not by stopping the production of it, but by helping your body metabolize it. Okay? So help it process and prevent oxidation of the cholesterol. So it works from the right standpoint. Absolutely, you can take them both. Yes, 2 different mechanisms of action, but both work to the same end result. The dosage that's on the bottle is fine for both of those. Yes. No, just the nattokinase. The cholesterol you can take, with or without food. Yeah. Yes, K2 is vital to make sure the calcium is not in the bloodstream, and it's going where it should be, and that's bones and teeth. Okay. D3, we talk about that all the time, but it's got a very important component for heart health as well, Very important. And that we just found out recently how that happens. It's a major component of nitric oxide production and making sure that you get the benefit from the nitric oxide and not having any free radical damage caused by too much of it. So D3 kind of mellows that out a little bit, and taking the D3 with the nitric oxide precursors, which are arginine, citrulline, beetroot powder, and we have that in CircuCore. That's our number one product here for nitric oxide production. And nitric oxide, oh, I'm sorry, your head's spinning out there? Okay. Nitric oxide is important for blood flow. Okay? You can't take it, your body has to make it. It's a gas, but it's made in the endothelial lining, which is the lining of the arteries and blood vessels, and your nasal passages, and your throat and mouth. And it's been destroyed by all kinds of things in our lifestyle. One of the worst things is mouthwash, believe it or not. Nasal sprays that are not colloidal argentine silver. So what we're trying to do today is we're talking about heart health, and it's still the number one killer in the country. And we're approaching heart health from two major components, and that is an energy standpoint for the heart itself and a circulation standpoint for the cardiovascular system, okay? And just to recap, the three major nutrients for heart energy production are CoQ10, L-carnitine, and D-ribose. They're all in our power fuel. That's all you need is that one formula. They're all in there. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then for circulation, increase nitric oxide, clean out the arteries, and make sure you get vitamin K2 in your diet or supplements. Okay, Doc, any parting shots?
No, I mean, this is really great. I mean,
Sure, we'll show you the products.
Sure, there's just I like the systems approach, and you know, you guys talked about diabetes earlier this morning, and we talked about colloidal silver and copper middle, and now we're talking about cardiovascular health. And I mean, you talk about, well, which nutrients, which are going to have which effect, and the same. We're talking about three entirely different nutrient categories. We're talking about different body systems. We're talking about different challenges, and yet we're talking about the same nutrients coming up over and over again to be key components in making sure that certain problems just don't come up. And we hear the same names over and over again, and hearing that, you know, I mean, I can only imagine how overwhelmed you feel sitting there listening to this talk. Wait a minute, I already take 70 capsules a day, and now I'm going to have to take 170. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it can be overwhelming at first. But when you start looking at the nutrients and what is in the proprietary blend and what's it really doing, and how many different body systems are being positively affected, and how are we integrating all of these ideas, it all of a sudden it's not as complicated and it's not as daunting as it sounds.
It's not, and that's why we do so many powders, because we can combine all of these things into powders, and it makes it simple and easy to get the dosage that you need without taking lots of pills. Yeah, well, there's a good protocol we can put together depending on your needs. There's always a protocol depending on your needs. It's never about the product. It's about a protocol, right? And that involves lifestyle too. So we didn't even get a chance to get into that.
No.
But
well, the magic is really matching the right person with the right protocol. Right. I mean, it's, you know, we have one stack of, I mean, I'm sitting here just staring 12 o'clock. There's a bookshelf with a lot of literature on it, and I know that around the corner there's another one, and there's all the literature. All these protocols are lined up at the front desk and throughout the store, and it doesn't mean that everything is appropriate for everybody. Right. It doesn't. Let's look at your individual specific concerns and figure out what's going to.
Actually, that is going to be Jeff Nisnik, and this is a perfect segue into him, because Jeff can do that fine-tuning for you. And using energy response testing, your body will tell you which ones work best for you and how much of them. So it's a great way to segue into the next one. Yes, he is. Stick around. There he is right there. He's coming up next. Mr. Jeffrey Nisnik, folks. Energy response technician extraordinaire.
Indeed.
All right. Well, that's it. We're going to take a little break here, and Jeff will be up at the 1 o'clock hour for the last workshop of the day, and it's the interactive one. Stick around. Maybe he'll use you to do some testing. Okay? That'll be great. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Keep an attitude of gratitude.